love to ask people what they perceive as scary about the ocean. And people will often tell me that the ocean feels uncontrollable, the ocean just feels huge, the ocean feels unknown. It's actually a very common metaphor for our mental health, too, right? There's so much that can feel uncontrollable, so much that can feel unknown, that before long we can really start to become afraid of our minds sometimes. But here's the thing, we can learn how to master our minds. And I'm going to share with you a few things today for how we can cope when our minds feel uncontrollable, scary, unknown. Because just like the ocean, life can feel completely unpredictable. Has this year not been a total example of that? And it can feel like this uncontrollable tide rolling into our lives. But there are things we can do about it. We never have to be a victim to the waves in our lives. This is where we get our power back. This is where we feel grounded and capable again. And I want to give you that today. So, what do we do with this? Well, there's a few things. The ocean is tough, but so are we, right? There's a lot of things that the ocean can do to us, but there's always a way. Whether your board breaks, well, you get a new one. A shark bites, get a lifeguard, or yes, if a shark comes for you, punch it in the gills. I'm grateful I have not had to do that directly, though I have swam with sharks once in my life, and it was really fun. A jellyfish could sting, and yes, just like the Friends episode, it's true, you want to pee on the leg. Also glad I haven't had to do that one real time. And you know what? Sometimes you're going to get knocked around by some waves in your life. You always want to follow the bubbles. You always want to look up. And it's the same parallel when it comes to our mental health. There's a theme here. And I want you to think about what that one word might be, what's coming up in your mind. Because most of the time, we can find a way. If there's anything that I've seen in my clinical practice working with hundreds of college students, it's that people are so incredibly capable. You know, it's interesting. People will often tell me, gosh, how do you work with client after client? Isn't it depressing to hear all the trauma, all the losses, all the heartbreak? And yes, I've heard a lot in my time. And I'm sure I'm going to unfortunately hear a lot more. But I completely see it another way. I am astounded, I am floored every day by how capable my clients are, by their resilience, by their grit, by their ability to get back up. If there's anything that I wish for all of you that you could see inside a therapy office for 8 hours a day, it's that you would be able to see that we humans, we can get through anything. And it doesn't mean it's easy. And none of us would wish for these things to happen in our lives. But the human spirit is hardy. We don't give up. Part of my work is helping people when they feel like they want to give up to see that there are people who love them and care about them and have their back. We're never alone in this journey. It's so important to remember that. So if there's anything that I've seen, and I hope that you see it too, it's that we have incredible resilience. We often live our lives in so much fear of the breakup, of the loss, of a change. And here's what I want to give you. Worrying doesn't change the outcome. There are things that will happen in your life. There are things that will happen in my life that are going to be so freaking hard. And yet I know, and I want you to know this for your life too. You're going to be able to get through it. You've gotten through everything in your life up till now. What's stopping you from continuing to survive? Continuing to know and acknowledge your capability to cope. You already have that within you. But before you start thinking that this is a toxic positivity talk, because no one wants that, let's be honest. Sometimes there is permanent damage. There are real losses that we can never get back again. That's why I really try and never ever say, and I try and share this with people too, do not say everything happens for a reason, because I'm sorry, some things have no good reason for why they happen. They just plain suck. And the sooner that we can admit and acknowledge that, the more we can heal and cope with it. So, what do we do when there is permanent damage, when we are truly heartbroken? Well, you need to allow yourself to mourn. Allow yourself to feel sadness, grief, frustration, anger. I saw this with so many people during the pandemic where they really should on themselves. And yes, I said should, not the other word. They really should on themselves. And they said, I shouldn't be feeling this way. Someone has it so much worse than me. And you know what? Somebody probably did have it worse than you. Somebody else probably had it better than you. But stop comparing your emotional experience, your grief, your pain, your loss to someone else's. Your experience is your own, and it is a valid one at that. So allow yourself to feel whatever feelings you have and know that there's room for your pain and there's room for someone else's too. The second piece is that we talk about it, that we share our distress with other people, that we don't just keep it in. And people who identify today as men, I am especially making this point to you. Men, we want you to share what you are experiencing. The losses, the pain, the emotions that you are going through, they matter. There should be an opportunity for every person, no matter how they identify, to share what's going on in their lives. I think this is a big, big way that we can break through mental stigma. And then this piece, the third piece, which I find really fascinating, you need to allow yourself to physically react. It's incredible. If you go on, watch it later, some YouTube videos of polar bears who've just been through a fight or flight experience, you'll see that they often freeze, and then as they're coming out of it, their entire body shakes. And the same thing happens actually with new moms who have just given birth. It's incredibly common for the entire body to shake. Whenever we go through anything big, major in our lives, we need to let the body physically express and release that, whether that's tears, screaming, crying, physically shaking, whatever it is for you. You know, oftentimes we feel really ashamed to let the body have a natural reaction. And yet it is so, so healthy and healing to let those tears out, to let those emotions physically express themselves. And here's why. When we don't, there's research that shows that people have increased somatization. That's a mouthful, isn't it? What that means is that we see increased headaches, body aches, fatigue, gastrointestinal distress, tummy troubles. We see all those things when people hold in their tears, when people hold in their pain. So let it out. And you know what? Take a time out. If you need to step away, set a boundary and take the time that you need to process and cope. There is never any shame in that. But eventually, you got to get back on the board. You got to get back out there. You know, a lot of us, we can feel really tempted to sit on the shore and watch everybody else live their life. And when we've been hurt, we do need some time to just sit back. But here's the thing about sitting back. Yes, it prevents us from pain. It keeps us safe. But it also prevents us from really deep connection, from vulnerability, from love, sometimes from healing. And so we have to find that vulnerability to step back out, to swim back out into the water, and to take that risk. That's where life is at, in that deep, rich, and complexity where we might get knocked around a little bit, but we're always going to have our resilience. So wherever you're sitting today, whether you've been sitting on the shore or you are out at sea and you feel like you need a hand, hop on a board with me. Let's ride these waves together. Because if there's anything I want you to remember, it is that you are so much more resilient than you even know.